Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today with our panelists and our partner Veeam in Otava's Java with Otava on the webinar, but everything you need to know about your Microsoft 365 backup environment. Let's start by reviewing what we're going to be talking about today. We'll introduce the folks that are joining us today from our panel. We'll talk about some real stories about what's going on in the industry and your peer organizations around attacks, as well as an overview of what Microsoft truly does and does not do in terms of protecting your Microsoft 365 data, information, and other data points. And last but not least, we'll quickly review how we can help patch or fill some of those gaps in the environment. Let's start by introducing our panel. Brandon, thank you for joining us from Veeam today. Turn it over to you to give yourself a brief introduction.
Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks everyone for joining. So Brandon McCoy, System Engineer at Veeam Software. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been here about 4 years, and I focus exclusively with our service providers.
All right. Pleasure having you again. Jason Duchnowski, over to you, sir.
Hey, good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. Jason Duchnowski. I'm a product manager at Otava, and my primary responsibilities are our backup portfolio and disaster recovery solutions.
All right, Jason Pullman.
Yes, good morning. Jason Pullman, Director of Solutions Architecture. I've given quite a few demos of our 365 product and service. So I'm going to look to add some color commentary today and address business challenges that we solve for our customers with this product and give you a few examples of hotspots with those customers as well to show that what we can help you out with. Thank you.
All right. And last but not least, my name is Jeremy Bigler. I'll be your moderator this morning. I head our product group here at Otava and look forward to exposing 365 and some of the ways that you can better protect your environments. With that said, let's dive in a little bit to some of the things that have recently happened in 365, right? 365, as I'm sure all of us know, is a SaaS-based application environment. And as such, it becomes obviously a target for organizations. Now, malicious behavior is not the only risk here, right? In addition to that, we have disgruntled employee challenges or concerns. We have some challenges around just technology inconsistencies or unexpected behavior. And last but not least, Microsoft itself is having interoperability concerns. I think the bottom underscoring point of this is that your data may not necessarily be as secure as you may assume it is being hosted by Microsoft. And we'll talk a little bit more in this presentation later about what Microsoft does and does not do with regard to keeping and safeguarding your information. Let's flip over to a recent headline that came in. And Brandon, I'm going to ask you to speak to this a little bit here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've done a bunch of these webinars on Office 365, and unfortunately, it seems it's always very timely. There's some new attack or some new glitch or breach. Like you said, a lot of times it's Microsoft itself having some kind of unknown bug. It can be state-sponsored, attacks from very large criminal organizations. But this one was a disgruntled employee who was fired from his company. And unfortunately, his administrative privileges were not removed. So he went in and deleted 1,200 Office 365 accounts. Microsoft is just the service. So if you say delete these users, it's going to say, are you sure? And that's it. So this really affected the company. Took them over 3 months to fully restore. A lot of companies, when this happens, they don't ever recover, whether it's brand reputation or just so much massive loss of data. Now, this person was imprisoned for 2 years, which it's good that we got the bad guys, but it doesn't really change the fact that they lost all that data. And it just shows you how easy it is for a malicious insider, somebody who used to be at the company who maybe still has access to click a button and delete all your data.
So that brings up a good question, Brandon. Is this an edge case, or is this more maybe epidemic than we may imagine?
Yeah, I'd say it's somewhere in the middle. I don't think everybody out there is running around like this, but I've seen from some of my previous ransomware webinars, there was another one where someone logged into Amazon Web Services and deleted thousands of EC2 instances or computers, and it took down that whole entire business for quite some time. So yes, we do. It's not a one-off. We do see this happening in multiple kinds of public cloud and around Microsoft Office 365 quite a bit.
So this, I think this brings up another point here around, what is really the pervasiveness of these types of issues or concerns, right? And there's some challenging data here presented to us by CoreView. The first data point of which is 70% of users will suffer a compromised account. And Brandon, maybe you can help us understand a little bit about what a compromised account is at high level. I know we'll talk about more of that later, but what does that actually mean?
Yeah, so it means a bunch of different things depending. The first is, some of these common attack vectors. One of the most popular is probably a phishing scam. You get an email, it looks like it's from your boss or Microsoft or some other, legitimate source, and you click it, you click a link. Next thing you know, you've downloaded something into your account. That could affect your Office 365 account by itself. It could also be hooked up to Azure Active Directory. So a lot of times we see a work group or an account get hacked and it has certain privileges. So because of that, they're able to enter in through the back door and, really spread that infection. And then, things like SharePoint as well. So SharePoint is, sharing lots of files, lots of data, lots of interconnectedness. And so if some kind of ransomware, some kind of malware virus, gets in there, it's very easy to spread and further infect the company or organization.
What's sobering about all of that, though, I think, is the fact that the next data point here, 6 out of 10 folks, fully better than 50% of organizations out there using 365 today don't have a data protection plan in place. And when we think about the type of data that we place into a 365 account, right? We're talking about shared files, folders, we're talking about email, we're talking about other assets, as well as real-time collaboration and communications with teams in a workplace, right? We're really talking about one of the core lifeblood application suites of a business in today's world, especially in a geographically diverse or remote work environment as such we have today. This starts to really now pose some concerns, right? But I am a little curious about the third bullet here, Brandon. Could you help us sort of understand what the level of impact here of this element translates into?
Yeah, it really just affects the whole organization, right? And so again, it depends on who's doing what. So from a disgruntled employee, it's more just, I deleted everything. So your data is gone. You may have to, struggle to get that back. The other one is exposing, right? So it's not just always deleting the data. A lot of times it's finding sensitive data and threatening to leak that information, customers, credit cards, social security, things like that. And then just infecting your whole organization. And it can go a lot further than just, one account, just one service, depending on how you have your data center and your business set up, it can really affect everything within the organization, like I mentioned.
So this could really be, I think, contrasted perhaps 365 now in context could be contrasted as perhaps maybe an open door in our house that bad actors or malicious intent use cases could come into and exploit to really then take and perpetrate other things within our virtual house, right? That could have impact far greater over and above just 365 accounts and SharePoint data, et cetera.
Yep, absolutely. Sometimes that's just like you said, the front door in, and they're looking for something a little more critical or a different, service. And once they're in, right?
So I wonder if we could sort of decompile a little bit of sort of the history here, or the playbook of an attack.
Yeah. So if you look at these 3 steps here, the top one being the most common, these are the phishing attacks. You get an email. There's actually a video. It's on a website called KnowBe4. That's the letter B and then the number 4, where this person shows what would happen, and they actually create a ransomware strain. This person used to be a hacker and now, works with companies to discover vulnerabilities. And they send an email that appears to be from Microsoft. It's got the logo. It says that it's a spam filter and we need access to your email. And for some people, they may think that's strange and kind of, pause. But for a lot of people, you're working day in, day out. You don't really have time for all this. So you just click it. Next thing you know, you've initiated a malware server to start encrypting the Office 365 account. And so then your emails are encrypted. Then you'll get a following email that you can read. But unfortunately, it's from the bad guy saying, you need to pay us X amount of dollars if you ever want to see your data alive again, right? So step 2, bad actors deploy ransomware. So again, once they've made that that initial hook by you clicking something, right? And that's a big point. It's a simple but maybe sometimes missed point that you have to do something for this attack to happen, for the most part. And in this case anyway, you have to click something, you have to accept something, you have to open something, right? Go to some website that it's telling you to. And then once they've done that, you've allowed that computer to download things onto your system or onto your account. And then once they've installed that ransomware, they pretty much have free roam depending on, how far that virus is spread.
Got it. So, and again, from a playing field perspective, right, this is not just an attack on 365 tools and data, but using SharePoint or maybe a hijacked Active Directory authentication permissions. Now we actually expose the internal operations of our environment as well. So there's some far-reaching areas that this can sort of spider into over and above just 365, which in and of itself is probably fairly disruptive for many organizations.
Absolutely. Yeah. As we'll see in some later slides, it's really the cloud in the whole, right? The public cloud. It's just somebody else's computer, right? So you got to keep your data protected.
Makes sense. So I'm curious here, right? Let's talk a little bit about what organizations are doing today to protect themselves, right? And again, another sobering stat here. We talked that 6 out of 10. Really, now we're further quantifying this as 75% of businesses are what we would consider to be unprotected, right? Either imperfectly or not protected at all. I'm curious, Brandon. This is your study here. So walk us through a little bit about the methodology of the study and what some of the learnings here are.
Sure. So first of all, the second little stat there hurts my heart. That's what I do is data protection. So, but it's not surprising. I've been here for over 4 years. And when I first started, our product, Veeam Backup for Office 365, was on version 1, and it was hard to sell. Back in those days, I spoke mostly to end users, and there was lots of scoffs of, I don't need to protect it. It's in the cloud, right? A big misconception. And then the first stat up there too, so Microsoft native tools. So you might think something like a litigation hold, but I guarantee you, if you were to Google why litigation hold is not a backup, there's maybe 7 or 8 different articles from different companies and third-party sources. A litigation hold, it's something you have to enable. So it's also something you can unenable, right? And it's not separate from your production data. It's not really used for ransomware mitigation from an attack. It's used for e-discovery, lawsuits, legal holds. But one of the big things there is that e-discovery process, you can't pick and choose what you want to pull back down, right? You're putting a litigation hold on everything. And then when you pull all that data down, you might be exposing data that you don't want to be exposed during that e-discovery process. Where with, products like Veeam, we can, we have a backup of everything. It's separate from production. We can do point in time restores, a lot more granularity. So, I think that's why you see that, even though most people don't back it up at all, the ones that go a little bit further, they're relying on Microsoft's tools like e-discovery, litigation hold, to do that. And then, the 13% who do use 365, that is on the rise. This product that we sell is one of the fastest growing. And I was joking with you before, I think, Jeremy, I've been doing these Office 365 webinars for so long. I figure at some point nobody's going to show up because everybody knows. But there's still a lot of people out there that think that Microsoft is protecting their data for them.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting point you make, Brandon. We had a couple of conversations with some of our larger partners today just around 365 strategies. And there was maybe an unawareness of the the level to which Microsoft truly does not protect information that's hosted, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about the responsibility breakdown, but it's interesting to think that while SaaS applications like 365 are hosted with a provider, there's not necessarily the assumed protection that that provider is giving you, consistent security, backup, data recoverability, data preservation, et cetera, along with that service. That's an interesting statistic, and I agree with you. It's sobering at best, right? At least we're starting to see some of the bottom to increase there, but yeah, we do not back up is scary, certainly. Let's talk a little bit now, flipping the discussion track around why we should back up, right? I think some of these are self-evident, right? But I'd be curious, and Jason Pullman, love to get your thoughts on this initially. Give us some sense of why, at least from our current customer view, and maybe your view into the markets out there. What are some of the key reasons why customers would want to back up these environments?
I think what I'm hearing from our customers and what I'm hearing through our demos is I like the order of this slide. For your admin, that's probably what you're going to experience and what you'll be using the product most for. What I hear, though, for time saving is really the advanced searching capabilities. When it comes down to legal and compliancy, either searching for what mailboxes you should put on legal holds and how much time it saves them from the robust searching capabilities. That's really where I'm hearing a lot of the value coming back, because they're saving hours upon hours of time that they can devote to core competencies of the business. So I like the order for the admins here on what we address here and what we provide with this service. But overall time saving, I really hear it on the searching capabilities and finding those mailboxes and those word phrases and everything else that we can search upon. And it, like I said, it's very robust, and it really, during the demo, we spent a lot of time on the searching capabilities, because what I hear from a lot of our prospects and customers is that the service that they were on either didn't provide that, and or it was a tier up that they charged a lot more money for, where out of the box, we offer these robust searching capabilities.
That's a good point. Thank you, Jason. Brandon, I'm also curious, this first bullet here, right? Just human error, not malicious behavior, not intent, not bad actors, but just human error. Do you have a sense for how predominant or prevalent that is in organizations today?
Yeah, I think it happens a lot. Again, employees they're trying to get their job done. You've got tons of emails coming in and out. You may delete something that you thought you didn't need. And what's interesting, and that kind of transitions into the next part of the retention policies. So, if an email is in your inbox, it'll be there for a while. But if you delete it, you've got, I think, 30 days before Microsoft permanently deletes it. And then, you have your internal and external security threats as well. That all kind of goes to what Jason was talking about. When I do demos, I also get some oohs and ahs on the advanced search capabilities, not to mention the abilities to restore back into an account, right? So maybe somebody deleted a bunch of emails, then that person was fired. Well, if you remove them from the O365 org, you can't restore them directly back into their account. You've just got this PST you can pull down. So with Veeam, you're able to, mix and match, put emails back in different accounts and a lot of different recovery options. Makes
perfect sense. Excellent. So I think this, all of these reasons really give cause for us to stop for a moment and think about what the true responsibilities of Microsoft are in a 365 model, right? What is it that they are doing for us, and what is it that they're depending on us to do? So when we think about sort of a roles and responsibilities portion, Brandon, I'm curious if you could sort of walk us through some of these assets, and I'm going to just build out this slide here, but walk us through some of the gaps that you've seen in your experience where users may be assuming Microsoft is doing something where in reality they're not.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is called the shared responsibility model. And it's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, when it's not just Microsoft, it's not just O365, it's really the public cloud as a whole, right? So whether you're using compute resources, email services, SaaS, if it's data stored in someone else's cloud, a lot of times, especially these bigger public clouds that aren't as hands-on, that data is your responsibility. So Microsoft guarantees the uptime of their environments, security. I always joke, they've got the machine gun guards at the door, the badges, the biometric security. They're making sure their infrastructure is always up to date and patched. But the data inside is up to you. And there's even some Microsoft documentation that specifically says it's your data, you own it, you control it, but also, you're responsible for it.
So one thing, Brandon, we just got a question in, right? There may be a split today between folks that are working in a technology role, right? Internal IT or the service provision groups within an organization, and the folks at the organization that write the checks, right? Leadership or executive management. How have you seen the ability for IT or similar to help influence or educate the importance around this type of protection to executive leadership?
That's a good question. I think a lot of times, my role is to educate an MSP on how our software works and how we do everything. But then a lot of times the MSP role is to, talk to that organization and walk them through things, because a lot of times customers, they may know they need a backup or they've heard about data protection, but they don't know what that means. So a lot of times we walk them through a scenario, so if this account were to be deleted and it has all of this, in critical data, how would that affect your business or your company, right? Another good way is to just do a Veeam demo and let us go into our lab and delete an entire, Exchange account, and then talk about, what would you do if that were to happen, and show how easily it is to recover with Veeam. But yeah, I think just, these kinds of conversations, just saying, again, people think that Microsoft is taking care of everything because it's not in your data center facility, but really they're just providing that uptime. So I think making that distinction of how important is your data? If you lost it, would your business still be operational? And did you know that Microsoft is not protecting it?
So one of the other interesting aspects, I think, that there may be a misperception around in the industry is the level or time to which Microsoft can offer rollback or similar protections. So Brandon, I'm keeping you busy today. I'm just curious if you could spend a few minutes sort of walking through some of the retention timeframes here that we see with Microsoft offerings, and then we'll talk a minute then about sort of the life cycle of some of these issues when they occur.
Yeah, for sure. So like I was saying earlier, things that are in your inbox are going to stay there for a decent relative amount of time, unless somebody deletes it, right? Or maliciously hacks or encrypts it. But if you do delete an email on accident, and then you need to go back and find that, if you don't realize within that first 30 days, it's going to be too late. Microsoft is set to do, what it is, and you can configure some of these. You can make some changes. Some of those things cost additional monies, but you can kind of edit some of these retention settings. But I believe there's a little slide transition here, and what's interesting is that these retention policies, seem very straightforward, but they're really not. And a study was done that says the average length of time from the deletion, the compromise, to an administrator discovering that something happened is 140 days, right? So, a couple months after, it's already too late. And at that point, you can't go back, right? But with Veeam, we're able to set the retention policy we want with Veeam and Otava, and keep your data as long as you want. You can keep everything for 5 years, for 10 years, 7 years for HIPAA compliance. Honestly, you can keep your data forever, with Veeam, and it's real easy to just make those settings and not have to worry about what Microsoft is doing.
Yeah, so that's a good segue, Brandon. Appreciate that. In this slide, orange is good, right? You're essentially protected across now all of that for up to and as long as you may need based on compliance or legal hold or similar requirements. JD, anything that you would add in this slide around some of the use cases that I think we see this protection filling as opposed to some of the gaps we just discussed?
Yeah, I think the main driver here is overall simplicity. You know, if there are a lot of different knobs, if you will, from a, you know, how Microsoft protects you. Those knobs change randomly. You have to kind of keep on top of what is Microsoft's policy as it relates to archiving or length of recycle bin, all of those pieces. But having a holistic approach that can really address all the different use cases in the same way and give you that predictable, you know, retention policy that you want, a predictable cost, really covered by the same solution is key. So simplicity is really, again, kind of the main driver here. And I think that as more and more complexity gets driven into IT, finding solutions that simplify the picture are really important.
Yeah, just if I could tack onto that, one thing I see in a lot of the demos I do, and it's kind of to JD's point, you know, I get these questions, okay, so I can protect my mailboxes for, you know, 5 years. Okay, but what if it's permanently deleted? Well, it doesn't matter. So what if it's archived? Well, what if the employee is fired and they're not in Office 365? It doesn't matter, right? All this data is separate and you can restore it in a variety of different ways, and it is kept for the length of time that you want. And just one last thing as well, we have multiple retention styles. So if you want to do a style based on what we call snapshot retention, where we say, I want to back up everything and keep it for 2 years, starting from the day of the backup, we can do that. That's the most common method. Or we can also do item level retention, right? So maybe you have a retention of 1 year and I sent you an email back in 2018. We won't even back up that email in the first place because that email is already outside the scope of the retention, right? So you have multiple ways to do this, but you can just set the retention and just kind of set it and forget it.
No, that makes perfect sense. And what's interesting on here, Brandon, is I see the last, right? Employee leaves the company. We think about some of the compliance requirements for SOC, for PCI, for HIPAA, et cetera. All of those mandate, you know, onboarding and offboarding employees at appropriate times, including deletion of credentials and assets that employee has access to when they're released. So right there, I think we almost set ourselves up here in a win-lose situation where if we're complying to a compliance requirement, right, we're automatically deleting those assets, we're deleting those accounts, we're deleting that employee instance, but we're also now removing our ability to go back and reference that information and ever recall or retrieve should we need to in the future. So this is another gap, I think, that is a key area for at least those organizations out there that have any type of either high security or compliant driven use cases. Anything else, Brandon, that you might think about or add there, or also Jason Pullman?
Not for me. That's a great point. The fact that sometimes you have to delete the data, right? Because to be compliant, but you still need that data also to be compliant, right? So that's a good way to put it. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add here, Jeremy. We pretty much have it covered. I think everybody knows from your either E3 or E5 licenses what you have access to and what we can protect. I see the OneDrive here, the SharePoint. Also, a lot of people are embracing and adopting Teams. That actually is backed up into as a SharePoint site, so that's covered as well underneath SharePoint. That's the only thing I didn't see on this slide.
Makes perfect sense. Yep, agreed. So team, what I'd like to do is just cover a little bit. I know we've gotten a few questions about sort of what do we do in situations like this? How can we help fill some of those gaps? I do want to give you a quick overview of Otava for those of you who may not be aware of who we are. Otava really, our specialty is taking complex technical environments and infrastructure and simplifying that, making that easy, making that simple to consume and utilize. We cover a wide range of services. We'll talk about this later, but essentially hybrid multi-cloud environments, disaster recovery, security, co-location, and the key value proposition for Otava is around our partnership with both our clients and our downstream partners in walking through understanding functional requirements, use cases, the why, the ask, and then presenting multiple different ways to solve that through technology implementation, allowing our customers and partners to make the ultimate decision for how would be best fit for their business requirements to reach that end state. The goal here is promote you all to be able to actually consume IT when and how you need to, without having it be a distraction to your key business focus or day-to-day operations. With that said, I do want to talk a little bit about our overall data protection and disaster recovery suite. So JD, can you walk us through this, please?
I will do my best to kind of give the high level of our protection suite. And the way to think about this is there are multiple tiers of solutions that can provide different business outcomes for your systems depending on the recovery needs. And at the top of the picture is really delivering the lowest recovery point objective. So the shortest period of time of data that I'm losing for your most critical applications. And we handle those typically with disaster recovery solutions. And we have an array of solutions that can complement either a fully managed, if you want hands-off type of a service, or a self-serve. So in many of these instances, we have both flavors. But as you work your way down the picture to tier 2, less important applications that still need quick recovery, those are handled by our DRAS solutions with VMware, and we have more of a data-centric offering. This is really the tier 3. That's where Veeam fits into the picture today. Is that we have backup solutions and offsite data solutions for your infrastructure, for your applications that provide RPOs of minutes to hours. And this is the MS365 backup really fits into that picture as well, because it's an offsite of your 365 data. It's storing it in our secure compliant cloud. And then finally, kind of from a compliance perspective, that's really where that data vault picture fits into play. So large amounts of data, longer retention, you have your cheap and deep storage that you typically are sending data out there once, maybe reading it several times, but you need a low-cost solution. We really have a holistic picture here for the entire enterprise that can address the different needs of a particular application. And an application may fit into multiple buckets here, right? I may have disaster recovery for an application, then also leveraging backup as well. These kind of fit different use cases, but this is the overall kind of strategy as a company.
So one question, JD, that we received here in chat was what is Otava's relationship with Veeam, right? How do we integrate? What's that relationship look like? Can you expose that a little bit, please?
Sure. Yep. So a relationship standpoint, Otava is a Veeam Gold partner. So we're a Gold VCSP with Veeam. We have been working with Veeam for about 5 years now as a company. So that relationship is mature and continues to grow. Our engineers and our staff is continually working on education and training. So we have several certified engineers. We have a group of, so a lot of certifications within the company to make sure that we are well trained up and able to support you. We're also, continually enhancing the infrastructure to make sure we're meeting best practices, that we're staying up with the latest and greatest software releases, all of those kind of pieces that you would expect from, a partner that you're looking to leverage their expertise and their infrastructure to support your business. So a really great relationship there. That's why we have it really the tier 3 doesn't do the relationship justice because there are a number of solutions and the solutions are also expanding. So we have several backup solutions for both premise and for cloud. And then we're also soon going to be releasing disaster recovery. So that's speaking a little bit into the future, but that portfolio is growing. This is a deeper picture into really what that relationship looks like from, for today, for the services that we offer. Along top, you'll see each of the various services that we provide. So Cloud Connect leverages Veeam Cloud Connect Backup. That's really a prem to Otava Cloud, offsite for your backups. We offer that in a self-managed flavor that allows you to do your own configurations. You have self-service for restores. You can configure your own recovery points, and it's priced by just storage usage. The next two over to the right are our Otava Cloud Backup, or OCB. That's our IS backups for the Otava Cloud. I mentioned earlier that there's self-managed and fully managed flavors. So that gives you either the flexibility to define your own RPOs and do your own restores, or maybe you want Otava to take care of that because we're keeping the lights on, you focus on more strategic aspects of the business. Finally, and not least, is all the way to the right is the backup for Microsoft 365. The way to think about that is it's really fully managed backup with self-serve restore. So we take care of all the backup, and you handle all of the restores that are required for the business. We're obviously there to assist you, as the expert, kind of supporting your business, but it gives you, the outcome that you're looking for, which is you take care of all the backups, worry about that, making sure that those are happening every day. And it is priced on a simple per user count. So however many users that we protect is how that is priced out to you. And we do that based on an exclusion policy. So let's say you have 100 users in the business, and then you grow to 110, we will automatically take in those 110 unless you say don't back those users up. So as businesses grow and shrink, that policy, the way that it's set up, will automatically cover you, so you don't have to do anything in the event that your business is growing.
Makes sense. Appreciate it. Let's go in a little bit more, JD, if we can continue that thought process and talk about how do we actually, how do we offer this, and what are some of the key differentiators of the service?
Yeah, absolutely. We touched on a lot of the reasons why we need to be able to be protecting the 365 infrastructure. There's multiple applications within Office 365, Microsoft 365. We're protecting all of those: Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, and it's done at a policy that really you define. So you can say, how long do I want to hold on to this data? 1 year, 3 years, 7 years. Really what we're trying to do is ensure that we're hitting different compliance requirements, depending on whether it's PCI or HIPAA. Those types of compliances will drive a certain retention requirement. Maybe it's 7 years, so we can hit that retention. You'll see kind of that second bullet there on the bottom. We are a secure and compliant provider. So all of our solutions adhere to these compliances: HIPAA, PCI, SOC, HITRUST, ISO 27001. So we have a lot of clients that rely on those compliances, and we handle that compliance check mark for you, so you don't have to worry about that. I did mention the per user pricing. Really simple, really easy to understand. It's just the number of users that are being backed up by the solution is what that pricing looks like. Really the power of Veeam, one of the main differentiators for this solution versus maybe some other ones out there, is the discovery. So I have a lot of different ways that I can search through data. It's really flexible. There's a lot of customization. So depending on how narrow that I need to get with my search, Veeam provides a lot of different ways and angles that you can take a look at that data. You can search through data and do restores. to make just kind of flow along with that security aspect, all data is encrypted in flight and at rest. And again, lots of recovery options. I can go back into 365. I can export that data. Let's say I need to send it to an external drive and ship it to my legal firm. Lots of different options there for recovery as well. So pretty much everything under the sun, I think Veeam has thought of built into the product. I want to say it's like 27 different ways that you can handle restores through the platform. So we provide all that to you as courtesy through Veeam.
So JD, one question that's coming in from the audience here is this makes perfect sense for those 50 some odd % of folks that aren't protecting their 365, plus all of the quasi or semi protection methodologies. But what about folks that are currently using Veeam's 365 protection? What are the differentiators that Otava can provide versus somebody doing that work on premise?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple different things. For one, just the amount of time, the care and feeding that goes into making sure that the backups are happening. So just a people aspect there. We're handling all the backups. We're handling monitoring of those backups, management of the backups. So any kind of daily care and feeding from monitoring perspective. Also, all the infrastructure is housed in our secure and compliant data centers. As you grow and scale, we have that infrastructure available to you. We have a team of people that are monitoring that infrastructure. Again, I talked earlier about the security and compliance associated with that. So we do make sure that the solutions are secure and compliant, related to the security and compliance that I mentioned earlier. Our expertise, always staying up on the latest and greatest with Veeam software. We are taking care of that just ongoing life cycle of upgrading. We're staying in tune with the latest features, with training of our teams, so that you as a user, you're really just focused on restoring. So searching through the data, finding the data. We're taking care of the Veeam aspect of it.
JD, if I could add something here,
Sure.
I agree with all those points. In addition, we have the repo sitting on performance-based equipment. It's not just JBot equipment. So when you do your searches, you get fast response times. Our pipe back to MS365 is large, so your restore times are that much quicker as well. We talk a lot of customers says, I just don't have the pipe to get everything back up there in a timely manner, and my CTO is sitting here at my desk wondering why I can't restore things in a timely manner. So we offer some performance valuation as well.
I appreciate that.
Jason,
Thank you. So I know we have a number of technical folks on today's call. JD, I'm wondering if you could sort of walk us through high level, right? We don't have to go into the speeds and feeds, but the technical architecture of the 365 environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Simple technical architecture. I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do. When you look at this picture, keys are, the backup is kind of in that dark blue color. So we are plugging in to Microsoft 365, either using simple authentication, or we can also do multi-factor depending on how the environment is set up. And we will ingest that into our environment based on a once a day policy and retain it in the repository. So in a secure, encrypted repository inside of our cloud infrastructure. It is a scale out infrastructure. Jason mentioned the performance aspects of that. So it is a highly performant scale out infrastructure that's available. And really, as a consumer of the service, what you're doing is you're just tying in, again, secure tie-in to that your specific repository with your backups for restores. One of the benefits of this type of methodology is any malicious intent is prevented because we are the ones that are handling and managing and maintaining the backups. The retention policies, the access, all of that is handled through us. Really, you're focused on restoring the data, and that's how it should be in a backup service. So this picture is showing restoring back to 365. One thing that doesn't show is going back to premise, but all that's handled through the standard Veeam interface. So if you're comfortable with Veeam, just as a user doing regular backups, it will look very familiar. It uses Veeam Explorers. There's an Explorer for SharePoint, Exchange, and OneDrive, so that you can search through and find those files and recover quickly. It just pulls it through as a whatever format that you want, either PST or zip or back to 365.
Fantastic. Now, JD, one of the things we just talked about right in the last slide is some of the shared responsibilities. And Otava really makes this experience easy. I'm hoping you could sort of walk us through who owns what in this process.
Yeah, I've touched on it a couple times, but I think it's worth repeating that we are responsible, we as Otava are responsible for infrastructure management, job management, and it talks about backups and then retention. So all of the kind of the blinky stinky lights in the data center, and the making sure that the data is there and protected, that all falls on us. There's sort of a shared responsibility when it comes to the user management and the event that maybe you have an administrator that is no longer should have access, or there's maybe some issue with connecting into the environment because a password's changed or something like that. We may have a job failure resolution shared responsibility, or we need your help to resolve that. And then finally, what is on the client is, if you want to have multi-factor authentication, then that can be enabled on your side. It's not a requirement. And then obviously the restores, that's the important piece. Accessing your data, that is your responsibility.
Thank you. All right, so I think everyone, what we've tried to show here is the ability for a lot of those existing gaps in what we may expect Microsoft to do for us, and what Microsoft is actually doing for us, can be filled through this environment, right? We go back to the same use case. And Brandon, what would be the takeaways here that we should walk away with understanding sort of the areas of gaps that we can answer or address through a Veeam 365 backup solution?
Yeah, I think all of these different reasons, we call them sometimes the 6 reasons why you need a backup for Office 365. And to your point, Jeremy, what we kind of, honed in on today is the shared responsibility model. Microsoft provides the services, but you're responsible for the data, and you're responsible for the data in any of these 6 scenarios, right? Whether it's a mistake, an internal malicious employee, like we saw the example of today, ransomware, which we've seen plenty of those over years, and then just some of the services that Microsoft offers, not maybe understanding how that works and how it protects.
Perfect. And Jason Pullman, I'm curious, any stories you can share with us this morning on how Otava clients have actually utilized our data protection services for their benefit?
Yeah, I'm just going to focus on 365 here, Jeremy, since it's been a majority of the conversation, even though we have a wide product portfolio to protect all of your data on different RPOs and RTOs. I've had numerous customers talk about, like I mentioned before, the advanced searching capabilities and how much time that saves them. Time is money. Brian asked a good question in chat about, how do we present this to our upper management to sell them on the fact that we need it. And Brian, I tell you and others that that's part of our consultative approach when you engage us, and actually the team I'm on the pre-sales side, we help you frame that and put that narrative together. Because it depending if you're talking to your CIO, your CEO, or your CFO, each of them have different points of concern that we need to address, and we have the tools to help you do that. So what I'm hearing though, as far as our current customers, Jeremy, is the searching and the robust capabilities to restore or recover, not just back into 365, but get things down to somewhere else, a third location, either at the org level, at the mailbox level, at the folder level, or at the message level. Very powerful tool to be able to help you do your job and save time. Time and energy. And that's another thing, Brian, if after we talk with our prospects here on the package and what is the best solution for that business challenge, it is, here's how we can save you time. Time is money. Those folks up there in the C-suite levels understand money, and that's how we get the message across. Jeremy, does that help?
It most certainly does. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And to wrap today, number one, please be interactive with us. If there's any questions in your mind, I know we've had a bunch come in, but feel free to just throw a question out there, and we'll be happy to respond to it. A couple things that we'd invite you to do today in closing today's webinar, first and foremost, is let us show you the value, right? Get some hands-on firsthand experience with what the Otava Microsoft 365 solution can do for your organization. Let's walk through how simplistic it is so you understand the level of benefit versus impact. And last but not least, one thing that Otava is doing for this quarter is we are not going to lose on price. So love to speak to you more about what that can mean for you. But again, take us up on this, right? Let us show you the value. Let us prove to you the benefit that can offer to you. And we look forward to speaking to all of you.
Hey, Jeremy, one quick point. I saw their question came through about CMMC. We are in the progress or process of obtaining that level 2 certification for CMMC, if that helps answer the question for the gentleman that came through on.
Fantastic. And there was another question coming in about support. I will say we follow the sun on support. So support for this product is 24/7, 365, as would be expected with a provider. All right. Everyone, I want to thank you for your time today. This concludes our Office 365 backup with Veeam presentation. I will offer, though, all of these recordings are hosted on our website, otava.com. Feel free to go and visit all of the Java with Otava webinars we've done around not only 365 and the Veeam portfolio, but also security and malware and similar topics can be viewed there at your leisure and at your discretion. So would invite you to engage with us around how we can assist you, and look forward to carrying on the conversation following today. If there's no further questions, thank you.